Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of the AskDAP show, where we answer your VW and Audi questions. I am your host, Paul Barrett. Let's get into the show.
Yang via email asks, I have a 2011 Tiguan SE with a 6-speed automatic and put $57,000 on it. I called the dealer to check if I need to get my ATF changed, and they said it is a sealed unit, so I don't need to change the fluid. Is that true, that the ATF fluid will last for the lifetime? Thanks for all the great tutorial videos.
Yang, the 2012, assuming that your Tiguan is not a DSG transmission, is what VW considers a sealed unit. Whether it needs to be serviced or not really depends on what your intentions are for ownership. Because VW calls it a sealed unit, it's going to be covered under warranty whether you maintain it or not. If you're planning to keep the vehicle long term, it could be something you consider changing the fluid. You have to drop the pan, change the filter, and install new fluid. It is generally fairly expensive as far as most VW fluids, usually in the $20 to $25 a liter range. But many people are hyper vigilant about maintenance and intend on keeping their vehicle long term, will maintain those transmissions even though there is no recommended interval.
Jose via email's question is, my Mark 7 2015 GTI is starting to show symptoms of the rolling lumbar. I think that's what it's being referred to as, where my stock struts are super noisy and make clunks. The rear is especially worse, always sounds like there is something loose even after removing everything, lid, carpet, spares, tools. The car has 23,000 miles on it and has had VWR springs installed at 20,000 miles. Do you have any experience with this? Possibly some remedies? I love my car, but every clunk reduces my enjoyment, and I'm not sure if a dealer visit would produce any results.
Jose, the Mark 7, when it comes to suspension modifications on that car, first of all, any mileage, when we did our DIYs, which you can find here and here for springs and coilovers, we didn't replace any of the bushings or any of the other stuff because the vehicle was so new. We had super low mileage when we did our suspension install. Any mileage probably over 15,000, I would probably start to consider replacing bushings and all the associated hardware. We made kits specifically for those intentions. Now, when it comes to the rear, if you're getting noise from the rear of the vehicle, most likely it's not going to be bushing related. Front noise, knocking under turning, slow speed knocks are a lot of times what happens from bushings in the front, which is the upper strut bushing and bearing, which should generally be replaced together. If you're getting noise from the rear, first of all, if you installed springs, you probably didn't remove the shocks, but sometimes if you did remove the shocks, the upper shock mount bolts are often to be left loose or could potentially be an issue. Also, if you didn't tighten the nut on the strut down all the way, sometimes it takes a special tool to execute that. That could be loose. Now, the other variable is the springs have rubber isolators that actually mount inside the lower control arms that actually go on the top and the bottom of the spring. If you lost one of those during the install, I don't know if you did the install yourself or had somebody else do it, but if one of those was lost during install, you might get some clanging noise when you hit bumps or other things like that. Now, so you either likely have an issue with one of your rubber isolators for the springs is missing, or there's some hardware loose in the rear end still, which is seriously concerning. So you want to make sure you address that as soon as you possibly can, and that should take care of your issue.
Derek S. via email has a 2010 GTI with 110,000 miles on it. The issue in question started happening at about 80,000 miles and manifested itself with a prolonged cranking of the starter motor. One symptom that I noticed was that I no longer heard the fuel pump priming upon opening the driver's door. Shortly thereafter, on occasion, both when the car is warm and cold, it would stumble and seemingly misfire as the engine fired upon starting. It has also done this and completely stalled out. Other times, it naturally corrects after a few seconds. This was about a year ago, and it's been exhibiting these symptoms ever since. There have been no codes thrown, my dealer tells me they can't replicate it, and my Indy mechanic looked at a few things, including the wiring connections through the driver's side door, but did not notice anything amiss. The Indy mechanic has recognized the longer crank time, but we have not been able to replicate the rough starts while I've been at the shop. I have a feeling that this is related to a fuel pump, possibly the in-tank unit. I have searched around various forums and a few people have stated similar issues, but I have yet to see a true resolution. I would love to hear your thoughts and/or see a video outlining what causes this and how to fix it.
Derek, on the 2010 GTI, if you're having issues related to the fuel pump not priming, just for anybody who's not aware, on most VWs since probably Mark IV, whenever you would either open the door or most cars, even when you unlock them, the fuel pump will turn on to send fuel to the vehicle so it's easier to start. If you're not getting fuel pump priming, you either likely have one of three issues. You either have an electrical fuel pump problem with the one in the tank, you have a control module issue because the fuel pump does have a control module on it, or you have a door latch issue which makes the vehicle not know when the door is being opened. Now that could cause that same issue, so you want to first maybe take a look at the door latch and say, okay, are we having an issue with the door latch? Do the lights not turn on, or does the vehicle not register when the door is opening or closing? Because that Mark 6 should show you when the door opens, the dome lights would come on, anything like that would happen. Now, assuming that the door latch is fine, you're going to have an issue with either the fuel pump or the control module. Now, determining which one is going to require a lot more diagnosis, which we can't really give you advice on. So you might have to either bring it to somebody to have them diagnose it, or you may want to just start with the least expensive, which I believe is the fuel pump control module. We'll put a link to it in the description. And replace that first, see if it addresses your issue, and go from there. Depending on if you want to have it properly diagnosed or not, it may be more cost effective to just replace it and see if it takes care of your issue. Hopefully that works out for you. Let us know. That concludes episode 3 of the AskDAP show. We appreciate all the feedback we've gotten so far. We want to hear more, so make sure if you have any comments, leave them below. Any questions you have for us, make sure you shoot us an email. We'll be glad to hear from you.